What you know, alibis? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. It's Saturday, August 30th. We are going to get all caught up today with yesterday's testimony. The state rested, so the defense case will start on Tuesday. There is no court Monday. It is a holiday. Next week on Wednesday, I'm supposed to leave for CrimeCon, so this is an issue. My biggest fear is that Donna is going to be on the stand when I'm flying to Denver and then at CrimeCon, but we will figure out what to do. Let's jump into day 6. They start off talking about the arrest. Sigfredo was arrested May 25th of 2016. Rivera was served a few days after that on June 3rd. He was already in custody. Katie was arrested October 1st, and then Charlie a few years later, April 21st, 2022. Katie was found guilty and proffered, or told all. This was after she was convicted at the second trial. Her proffer took place on October 11th, 2022, and the witness was present for that, who, by the way, FBI Special Agent Patrick Sanford, still on the stand. And the investigation had been ongoing for over 8 years at that point. During Katie's proffer, they learned that Charlie first approached her on Halloween 2013 on Lincoln Road about hiring someone, and Charlie's former attorney, Dan Rashbaum, confirmed Charlie was, in fact, there at this party. So back to the calls. We're going to jump into what I call the hot mic call, or the dropped jail call, and that call is what led to Donna being arrested. This was the day after Charlie's conviction. The call starts off with the call being dropped. She's asking Charlie, "Can you hear me?" Now, they do have a friend in the room. His name is Mr. Brothman. Donna tells the people in the room that Charlie is in a room where they watch you 24/7 so he doesn't harm himself. And this is something that is common after someone is convicted and facing a life sentence. She said the psychologist finally came in and he told her, "If you leave me here, I'm going to hurt myself. There's no light, nothing. So at least let me go back to my cell so I can see where I am." She told Charlie no, that he was perfectly fine, and said she had a few reports to write and submit. Once those were approved, he would be able to go back to his cell. And he thought it would be quick, but Charlie told her she better get it done because he's going to lose his mind in there. Their friend, Mr. Brothman, says he's probably not ready, so don't push. Donna says, "I think it would be a nice way to just leave. Say goodbye. I'm not going to lose my son who's going to prison for something he didn't do. I can't function." And Donna says, "I'm old. I had a life. We had a great marriage. It was happy. We traveled. We lived good. I'm really not that happy. I really don't want him to leave, to just say goodbye. So let me lay down. Something nice, nothing painful. I just want to go to sleep. We bought our cemetery property a couple of months ago. We're good. I'm good." It was hard to hear the first part of this, but they talk about what Wendi did this weekend. "Because I said something that made her feel like I had enough, and I'm not going to watch if the court or the trial doesn't go well. I know what I need to do." Then they talk about Wendi coming over, and they knew something was wrong because they lived here 9 years, and she never once came over and said, "I need to talk to you." Donna says Wendi sat down on the couch, and she didn't say, "This is a horrible time for all of us. Charlie is on trial for his life. We're all aggravated." She just sat there and said, "Look, if you're going to hurt yourself, I'm going to Baker Act you," which means have her involuntarily committed. Donna said she told Wendi, "I'm not going to hurt myself. I'm fine. Are we going to see the boys tomorrow night?" And she said, "Yeah." Donna was talking about her and Harvey doing this together and leaving a note. "They'll know when to come get us, and we'll do it together. I've got to make a decision at some point after speaking to Rashbaum this morning and knowing what they're thinking up there," meaning thinking about arresting her. She said, "I don't know if we'll make it out in time. I really don't. But Rashbaum said you might, or you might get to the airport and they'll stop you, and that could happen." Donna says, "I don't know, but it's worth a try." Donna says she doesn't know what she's doing and that she's lost it. She says they have to do all that stuff for Charlie's son. And Mr. Brothman starts saying what's best for him is to make a trust, and then, from what I understand from the call, is to put the child's mother as the trustee. Donna talks about somebody named George has not responded to her yet, but she says, "I could sit here with you and say, 'Wendi, would you do that?' But I can't because there's no response. Wendi told me, my lawyer this, her lawyer that, if it's about the case," and I told her it's not about the case. We found out that's not true. I asked my attorney and he said no. He asked Wendy's attorney and her attorney said I never told her that. So I wrote to Wendi last night. It said, "We know you never ask anything about your brother, but we just got off the phone with him and the first thing he asked was, 'How's Wendi holding up?' I didn't have the heart to tell him you never called or asked about him. I just said you weren't up for phone calls right now. Everyone looks to protect you. I bet you've got a lot to think about." But then she didn't answer. I got another call from Charlie. I told Wendi, "I just got off the phone with Charlie. He's worried about you. He wants to know why they didn't speak," and I told him a lie. I said, "We're only speaking with you and Dan right now." I couldn't bear to tell them the truth, which is your sister never even called us. This morning, I thought she would be racing over here, but I get a text. "Dear Mom, I know you're upset by the verdict, but the anger directed at me is not justified. I'm not responsible in any way for Charlie's situation. I'm not guilty because I didn't do anything wrong and I wasn't involved in any way with Danny's death." Donna says I didn't say she was. "When I was interviewed by the police and testified in court, I told the truth, as I was required to do. I cannot troll how the prosecutor used my statements for Charlie's trial." Donna says again, "I didn't say that." Wendi continues, "Also, as you know, my lawyer has advised me not to talk to my family or anyone else. I followed his advice despite your disagreement with his guidance. Please do not text me about this case anymore." Donna says to her friends, "It's not about the case. It's not what I said." But Wendi says, "If you have anything further to say about the case, please go through our lawyers right now. I have to be focused on taking care of the boys during this difficult time." Donna says she wrote back, "Okay, we have no desire to speak with you about the case. I guess Dad and I are just shocked that you didn't think of coming over to see us or even calling us. We are your parents. We have always been there for you and the boys. None of what we wrote matters about the case. That's over. I just want you to know how many times Charlie is asking about you. Not only do you not ask about us, but not one question about Charlie. We will need to give you some information shortly, and we need some business assistance. Please let us know if you can be of any help. If not, we'll try to find someone who can help us. This needs an immediate reply so I can start asking other people to help." Donna tells the people there that Wendy's always getting nervous if they want to talk to her, so I wrote, "Don't get nervous. Again, nothing about the case. Just want to show you some business stuff and personal things. If you can't do it, we must find someone who can. I hope you understand that this has nothing to do with the case. There is no more case. By the way, you said you have to focus on the boys. Have you told them?" Donna had been in touch with someone named George, who I believe, don't quote me on this, Wendi was seeing at the time. He was over at Wendy's the night Charlie was convicted. Donna asked George if Wendi told the boys, and he said she did. Donna says the oldest was very close with Charlie and had been writing to Charlie all the time. So I asked, "How are they?" She said Ben is very quiet and he didn't talk much. George said Lincoln kind of faced it and said, so he's never coming back, he's never coming home. Took about 10 minutes and then he was into his basketball again, which is fine. He's a child. I don't want to see them miserable and upset. That's not my goal. I just want to know. How are they? Donna also said she asked George for some help with some computer stuff and he told her he could come later that day. Donna goes on to say she has a safe there in the house and she wanted to give Wendi the codes since they're going to be gone and she wanted her to have all this information. She says, "I have the cemetery property. I want her to see all that. I want her to have all these papers." She also told someone named Rick they have the safe with the passports and also they need to get the photos for the passports downloaded. She said, "I thought my daughter could help me with it. We've been looking it up over and over because things change. Like, is there extradition from Vietnam? And we're looking for places where there's no extradition." But Mr. Brothman questions, "Is Wendi going to tell on you and say, my parents are thinking of leaving the country?" Donna said their attorney told them to do that, meaning leave. Donna says, "Well, that's when you tell her beforehand. I need to tell you something as an attorney who doesn't talk and has nothing to do with the case. It just has to do with Mom and I and some decisions we have to make. I want to bring her up and show her where everything is because if the plane crashed, no one's going to know where anything is or what belongs to who. I want her to come here so she can see it. And I don't think that's asking too much. She doesn't live 3 hours away. And every time Wendi says, can you do this? Can you come here? How many times have we had plans that I've had to cancel? Wendi needs us for this. Wendi needs us to babysit. So we've been really good nannies. And I guess our job is up because the boys are older. They can go out with friends and they can do things on their own. So she doesn't need grandma and grandpa. Okay, pretty hurtful. I have one son I don't speak with. I have one son who seems dead. And my daughter, who I love, is doing this. I don't get it. I said to Harvey, I swear to God, our family was cursed. Absolutely cursed. And I don't know how to take care of it anymore. So after that call is played, the prosecution is back up. Talks about the plans to go to Vietnam. And they did investigate to look into whether or not that was going to happen. They didn't hear that dropped call for a couple of days, but he did check with a government agency to see if there was a travel plan, and he was told yes, there was. The plan was to fly to Dubai and then Vietnam. He said Vietnam is a non-extradition country as well as Dubai. The travel was to take place the evening of November 13th, 2023. And he said they intercepted Donna prior to getting on the flight at the Miami International Airport. While they were apprehending Donna, they tried to seize her cell phone, and she did not willingly give it to them. She physically resisted. When he reached out to get the phone, she pulled it away and said no, and kept holding it away and tried to turn away from him. Another officer who was there grabbed Donna's arm and held it, and then they were able to take her phone. He said, but she was still trying to keep it from us. They talk about a planner from 2014 that was given to the state attorney's office through prior counsel. And Donna kept a lot of personal information, as well as identifying information for members of her family and friends. This, y'all, was a big kicker for me right here. In that planner, they found she had written down that Dan drove a 2008 Accord, and she also had the tag number written beside that. Prosecution points out this was the same car the killers pursued, and he agrees. He also says the plane ticket was one way with no return flight booked. The prosecutor makes clear that planner was given to them by Dan Rashbaum and was not found in the actual search warrant of her residence. And also, they found Dan's tag number in the back where names and addresses are kept. On cross, she asked when he came on the case as the lead investigator for the FBI. He said Dan was murdered on a Friday, and he was called that following Monday. She says her client, as he knows, when she has something to say or something on her mind, she writes about it a lot. And speaking of Charlie, he's the opposite. When he has something on his mind, he can't shut up, can he? The investigator says that's correct. She points out on the wiretap calls, you can hear Donna saying, yeah. And then when she realizes she can change the subject, she does. The defense says if you don't hear the entire call, you may not know the entire context. And she asked if on some of the conversations they talk about traffic. He says he knows that Katie and Charlie did. The defense says it's clear at some point Charlie starts to be pretty concerned about what's going on and why is my family continuing to be contacted. And you see a change in his demeanor. For example, there's a couple of calls between him and Katie where he's pretty angry and letting her know something needs to be done. Somebody needs to call this number. She asked, was he angry with her? The witness said no, that's not his perception. He was angry at the situation. She says at a certain point when talking about the brother in Broward County, Katie knows Rivera has been incarcerated there, and so she is starting to get concerned this may be somebody who's involved. The defense says when Charlie talks to Donna, he's always reassuring her. Everything's fine. Sometimes it's 99%, 100%, sometimes 1,000. And he's telling his mom there's nothing to worry about. Nobody's coming after you. You're okay. And the witness agrees. And she points out that out of all of the co-conspirators, the wiretaps were only approved for Katie and Charlie. And he agrees. Rivera's phone was tapped, but that was for a separate case, the one he was ultimately incarcerated for, separate from this one. They did get an extension on the wiretaps between Charlie and Katie. She goes through Dan being killed, them following him, and points out during the course of that morning, there was communication between Dan and Wendi. She talks about that voicemail Dan left and said it was a pleasant message. There were also text messages between Dan and Wendi after that. She said Dan didn't know what was happening when he hugged and kissed his boys and sent them into the classroom. He didn't know that would be the last time he would see his kids. She goes through Sigfredo shooting Dan, the neighbor calling 911, and once they respond, they put the crime scene tape up. The defense moves on to Wendi's law enforcement interview, which lasted for several hours. There's people in and out of the room. She's being audio and video recorded, and she says a lot of things, including Dan's parents are going to think I did it. She answers questions about who possibly could have done this, and she gives a lot of choices. Maybe an angry student, maybe somebody who's upset with them, and then she talks about her family and says her brother had previously joked he was going to hire a hitman, but decided buying her a TV was cheaper. Then Wendi says her parents dislike Dan more than anybody, and the witness agrees. The defense asks, after Wendi's interview, did the Adelson family become suspects? He said it depends on your definition of suspects, but they are persons of interest at this point. There were numerous persons of interest before they focused on the Adelson family, and they really started to focus on them about a year after the murder. She asked if they started recording the phone conversations after the bump, and he said no, they were actually recording about a week before. The wires between Charlie and Katie ended around June 7th, 2016. She asked if somebody was listening to the wiretaps or if they were being recorded. He says people have to listen to know when to minimize, meaning topics that are being discussed that have nothing to do with the investigation. They don't listen to those, but they are recorded. The defense points out one phone call was over 50 minutes, but during that conversation, Charlie talks about wanting to become a professional go-kart driver. And the defense points out not every minute of these conversations were relevant to the case, and the witness agrees. She asked about Jeff Lacasse being a person of interest. He said, I'm sure he was at some point, but the witness never dealt with him. However, we know initially they were looking into Jeff. The defense attorney points out Wendi did not refer to Jeff as somebody who would have done this. They refer to a call that's been previously mentioned in the trial where Charlie is telling Katie to go into his garage to get some presents. He tells Katie to take her shirt off to get the code. The defense points out, coincidentally, Katie had a tattoo on her ribs with the exact same numbers as his garage code. They move on to the Dolce Vita recording, and they refer to a statement Charlie made saying, trust me, I'll keep you full-time so you're getting your checks, and the witness remembers Charlie saying that to Katie. The witness was there at Dolce Vita, however, he did not go inside because he had previously been close to Charlie and Donna when they met on the boardwalk, and he did not want to risk Charlie recognizing him. As far as video surveillance, they were watching Sigfredo and Katie. Nobody had to be there to monitor. They put a camera up apparently on like a fixed pole or something like that. She asked about when Katie wanted to meet Charlie to pick up checks before the bump. They showed some photos of Charlie and Katie beside that Lexus that she was driving. He said they did surveillance on that. He's asked, how did you know she was going to pick up the checks? And he's like, the wires? As far as figuring out where to do the bump on Donna, he said FBI personnel did surveillance to get a pattern of life so they could figure out where she was going and when. They knew she consistently would walk to go pick up the kids from school at a certain time each day, and that's where they decided to do the bump. The defense asks, at what point did Donna become a suspect? And he said once they identified Sigfredo as being in Tallahassee the day of the murder, and then at the gym, they go on to identify Rivera, and then they go back to get phone records and linked Katie to them, and we know the link between Katie and Charlie. The defense points out at a press conference, the Adelsons were listed as being suspects. He doesn't remember them being called suspects at the press conference, but it is mentioned in the probable cause affidavit for Sigfredo. But I do remember at one press conference, they had a graphic they were holding up that had everybody, including the Adelsons, on it. I'm just not sure which arrest. She points out after Dan's murder, Donna and Harvey traveled several times out of the country, and they came back, and the witness agrees. She also points out on the wiretaps, Charlie would tell Donna, you didn't do anything to anybody. Donna would say at times she wanted to talk in person as opposed to the phone. And her attorney asks, have you gotten any evidence to show why she is saying those things? And the witness is like, nope. She talks about Katie giving the proffers after her conviction, where she told a very different story than what she testified to in both trials. She also pointed out in this trial, Katie mentioned she hoped to be able to see her kids one day. In the first proffer, they did not feel that Katie was being very forthcoming or answering truthfully. And the defense points out at one point the witness got up and walked out. He said that is something that they do, which is strategic, just to give people time to think. Then they move on to that dropped jail call. He was aware of that on a Friday, and they started looking through that database about international travel to see if Donna had booked anything. It wasn't until Monday they found out she did have a ticket for a flight. He had a contact who reached out to him and said there was a flight to Vietnam booked. The defense points out while Vietnam is not an extradition country, in certain cases they do extradite, and murder is one of those. She's asked about at any point prior to when Donna was arrested, did they have an arrest warrant? And they did not. Over the years, they went through tons of emails, listened to calls, no warrants. The defense says, you knew she was getting a visa for travel, no warrant? He says, that's correct. You're aware, on the dropped call, she spoke to her attorney about traveling and he said it's okay. And the witness says yes. There was still no warrant. They packed their bags, no warrant? Correct. Then they move on to the day of Donna's arrest. He left from Tallahassee to go to Miami. The state attorney's office told him they were considering getting a warrant, and they decided around 3 or 4 that afternoon to get one. They talk about her Vietnam visa being valid until February 2nd, 2024, making that a 90-day visa. Once he was at the airport, he spoke with an FBI agent who was already there. They find out what terminal her and Harvey were flying out of and moved to that area. They kind of stood away from the gate, and the flight was scheduled to take off around 8:10 p.m. He watched Donna and Harvey for maybe 20 minutes before the boarding process started. She asks, did Donna and Harvey have on any wigs or hats or glasses? No. They had a couple of carry-on bags, and they get in line to board the flight. Their tickets are scanned by the gate agent, and once they made it through to where they would start to actually board the plane, there were customs agents there, and that's when Donna was taken into custody. The defense pointed out, you were in a waiting area where she was, and you could have arrested her then, and he agrees. In your investigation, you found no connection between Donna and Sigfredo, Donna and Rivera, and Katie met Donna once when she had a dental appointment, but there is no direct connection between the two of them, and he agrees. Donna never plainly said she wanted Dan to be killed or wanted to hire someone to have him killed. No. And that was the end of cross. So on a redirect, you're aware Charlie's defense was that he had been extorted over the course of 2 years, and that's why Donna was sending the checks, because essentially she was also being extorted. The prosecution says as part of the extortion, the checks were given to Katie, but she was just cashing them and giving them to the killers. Prosecution talks about Charlie being really friendly with Katie and saying, yeah, and so you're very friendly with somebody in calls and texts who's extorting you. Prosecution says so. His defense was the hitmen came to Tallahassee unsolicited. They killed Dan, and they hoped to be able to get some money out of Charlie and Donna. The witness said that's what Charlie said. But Charlie didn't have enough money, so now they're going to be put on a layaway plan to pay overtime. And Charlie's defense was that's why Donna was writing those checks, and the witness agrees. She moves on to talk about Donna's grandson's bar mitzvah. That was set to take place January 14th at 10:30 in the morning. The prosecution asked, did she book a return flight that would get her home in time to attend her grandson's bar mitzvah? No. The prosecution said that Donna's defense team said the witness picked snippets of the wiretap calls to come in at trial, but the prosecutor also points out if they want to listen to the entire call, that is available to them in the jury room, and the witness agrees. So that was it for FBI Special Agent Patrick Sanford. I'm going to have part 2 out this afternoon. We're going to cover the search warrant that was done at Donna's. The 2 jailhouse informants testified. There's a handwriting expert and more. So look for that in a couple of hours. But that's it for this one. Hope you have a good rest of your afternoon, and we will see you soon.